Hey everyone, in this video we're going to talk about two really important things, finding your customer and building your framework. So these are cruxes, or I guess they're building blocks, they're big foundations of creating your business, because you have to understand your business before you can help other people to understand it, right? And a big part of understanding your business is understanding who the customer is. Who are you looking for to buy your product? You can't just say, oh well, it's for everyone. No, there's a specific person out there that wants your product. And you know what? The people who don't want your product, or I guess you could say it's just as important to identify your non-prospects as it is your prospects, right? Because you don't want to market to people who don't want it, because then you're going to get a lot of, you ever read those reviews on Amazon where people are trashing products? Well, maybe the product wasn't made for that person. That's why it's getting a negative review, because it wasn't for you, man. So let's talk about finding the correct customer to market to. So there are a couple different things you need to think about. First, you got to think about what's the best criteria for determining your potential customer or your prospect. And there are a couple different criteria, a lot of criteria that you can think about. Is there a specific age person that you're looking for? Is it just for younger people? Is it just for people in that tough middle age group? Is it just for people who are now a little bit older? Is it a gender thing? Is it just for male and female? Does it have to do with professional background? So is there just a lawyer, or just a doctor, or a student, or a pharmacist, or any one of these things? Is it a professional thing? Is it a personal attribute? Are they overweight? Have they gone through a divorce? Are they maybe they have a certain ethnicity? Maybe they have a certain job. Or a certain hobby, and then there are other ones too, et cetera. I just put et cetera because there are a lot of different criteria. So you need to think about your criteria. And some of them will be maybe a combination of these. Maybe it's women between 19 to 34. Maybe that's your criteria. But you need to think about all these criteria and think about where your potential customer is, because your framework is going to be tailored to them. And we'll talk about framework in just a minute. So then you got to think about your niche. How specific is your niche? So your niche is going to be your topic that you talk about. Your niche is your category. Your niche is who you're teaching to and what your subject matter is. So how specific is your niche? And when I talk about specific, there's this really counterintuitive principle, and basically it says that the more specific you are, the more general you become. So let me give you an example. If you give a really, really detailed account of a bad breakup that you've had, and you talk about something really, really close to you, and talk about a big pain that you went through, or maybe even a great euphoric experience, you think that maybe you're just talking about your experience. But what you'll come to find is that the more specific you get to your life, the more people can relate to it, the more people can feel like it's a general message right to them. The more specific you get with your examples, the more general it becomes. You don't want to generalize. You want to be specific about what you've gone through, what you've learned, and how you can help people. Talk about specific things. It's kind of counterintuitive, but the more specific you get, the more people it applies to. So you want to specify your niche. Maybe it's just for overweight mothers who are trying to get off their baby weight. And that would be something that you went through personally, but it's specific enough to now be very general to people, because they can understand where you're coming from. Another thing you need to remember is that you are not your customer, okay? You're not your customer. So what do I mean by that? Let me zoom in here. So what do I mean by that? Well, here's the thing. If you are now making a program to help somebody or to teach someone, you are no longer your customer, okay? You are further along the path than they are, okay? You are now on a different stage of your life. So even if you've gone through what you're teaching someone, you have to remember that you are not them anymore. So you have to avoid what's called expert blindness, which is when you forget how it feels to be a beginner. So a lot of that has to do with the idea that you shouldn't forget how to include even the baby steps to success. So for instance, if you look at, let me see if I can show, like these are the modules that I have for the Rich 20 program. And I start off with simple things like how to register a domain, I start off with WordPress basics, because I can't just assume that everyone knows how to make websites. I've forgotten now how difficult it was for me at first, how much I struggled. So I had to remember that and come back and teach the little details now, because it's not easy at first. So since you are further along the path, you have to avoid being blind to things that were once hard to you and really break things down. You're no longer your customer, even if you were them at one point. Remember that. And also, you want to build a customer avatar. So a customer avatar is based on four things: fears, frustrations, hopes, and aspirations. And what you want to do, an avatar, as we know, is like a static picture of someone. But your avatar is someone who would likely be interested in your product. And you can have more than one avatar for a certain product. But you want to build a customer avatar that will help you to understand your potential client or clients and your niche and your market and what your product is all about. So I have a sample one for you to read to you, and I'll actually attach it into this. I'll attach it into this module. But basically, I'm creating a product for mothers to deal with unwanted weight gain. It's called Busy Mom Skinny Jeans, and this is the customer avatar that I have for them. So I am a 34-year-old mom of two. There's no getting around it. My life is hectic. I have two children who need me for everything and are still growing. All the responsibilities of running the household and the responsibilities that come with being a good partner are there. It's not that I don't enjoy doing this. I love being a mom and a wife. The problem is that sometimes I end up dead last on my own list. See how I'm putting myself into her shoes and really trying to figure out who she is? I've tried to get in shape in the past, but that was short-lived. I didn't feel motivated, and I didn't feel like I fit in with my busy lifestyle. I'm also guilty about giving myself attention when I know that other people need it all the time. If I could get in shape, I would, but right now I just don't seem to have that time or energy with everything else that goes on. They have to come first, me and their family. So I'm not going to read you the whole thing. I'll actually attach that in this module, but that's a customer avatar, and what you want to focus on is the fears and frustrations of your potential client and the hopes and aspirations. Once you can determine those things, then you can really know who they are. Then you can speak to them specifically. Then when you talk to them, they know you're talking to them, and they'll feel like they can trust you because they'll feel like you understand them. Right? And that's basic sales psychology, but it's important to remember that stuff. And if you have any questions about that, of course, just give me an email. But let's talk about now the framework. So frameworks are basically, and I'll close this up. Frameworks, well, let's talk about frameworks. Let me zoom in here again. So here's a new mindset to think about. Teaching is now marketing. Before it was like, oh, I got to learn sales. I'm not a salesman. I don't know how to do sales. I don't know how to be pushy, all that kind of stuff. But you don't have to be anymore, because this is a new mindset that I want you to think about. Teaching is marketing. Your customers, you have to think of your customers as your students. You know, you are here to teach people. On your blog, you're teaching people, okay? Even on your product site, you're teaching people. You're giving them information. You're giving them information that's going to improve their lives. You're not selling them a product they don't need. You're teaching them something that they want to know. And a framework helps you to do that. So the things you teach must be easily digested, and that's what a framework helps you to do. So here's what a framework does. It's an easily understood map of main concepts, right? And it does a couple things for you. One, it helps to avoid frustration of like not knowing what's next or not feeling like your ideas are organized, because people want to have an overview of your concept that's organized so they know what to expect and they know how to operate. And it also gives a preview of what you're going to talk about so that people can start thinking in their head about what's coming next so that they can just start planning and start just kind of building a map for what they need to learn. And so here's how to use a framework. Basically, you can go meta with the framework or you can go topic specific. So let's talk about that. And that's what I do in Rich 20 Something. So I want you to think about what I've done here. So this is my framework for Rich 20. You see, I started out with the big picture, and this was my map for the big picture. Okay, this is the framework for the entire course. Coming up with ideas, learning about different types of products, getting your web pages up, marketing, and selling. That's the map for the entire program. That's the big picture. But now, so we can go meta, where we're talking big picture, or we can go topic or section specific, which is what this is, right? This is the specific framework for this module, right? So there's the big framework, and then inside each of the parts of the big framework, there's a smaller framework. But the whole idea is that you want to organize ideas for people. Now, you don't need to put it in a map like this. I'm just doing that because that makes this course easy. You don't need to necessarily even make it like mine, but you just need to have some sort of framework people can follow, because as you teach them, they're going to need some sort of steps to follow. And this is actually, again, counterintuitive, because this is not how people learn in school. In school, people learn by rote memorization, but I find more and more that with detailed stuff, what works is holistic learning, and holistic learning deals with connecting ideas in the network. That's what this is. They were connecting ideas. So use this Rich 20-something and think about how this course is formatted, and think about how you can take some elements of this and make it fit your own work. You don't have to use my exact format. You can if you want to, but think about how I've structured this in terms of a framework and build your own framework. So you see my framework has an easily understood map of main concepts, and it helps you to not be so frustrated and gives you a preview of what's going on. And so your framework can be the big idea, and it can also be specific to the topic. So once you find your customer, you really get to understand them. You write the customer avatar, and then you build your framework. You'll be much better off in understanding exactly how to communicate, how to find your customer and communicate with them. So make sure you complete the objectives in this module that help you to build your framework and find your customer. And so with that, guys, get to work, and I'll see you in the next module.